Traditionally, the last act of kindness we can do for someone we love is to accompany them to their final resting place, wherever that may be. From the moment of death until their burial, we try not to leave our loved ones alone. Standing then at the graveside of family and longtime friends, it's hard to leave that sacred place. Everyone else is gone, and yet we stand there hoping for one more moment, trying to find a way to say goodbye. We are praying the traditional Jewish hope of a heavenly Jerusalem, Yerushalayim Lamala, will be a truth, that someday our souls will connect with theirs, and we will, as the Torah says, be gathered to our ancestors. For now, what we have is memory. As a rabbi who has been sadly privileged to lead many funerals, I have walked away from countless graves, and the spirits of the dead walk with me. Somehow I cannot leave them there. Their souls live on inside of me and need to be remembered. Each person has something to teach us. And I would like to share just 4 of their stories. I want to be buried as a Jew, he told us, his rabbis. I am dying, and whatever time I have left, I want to be inside this community as a Jew. I have been living in a Jewish family and really practicing Judaism for 45 years since I married, took my Introduction to Judaism course here, and raised 4 beautiful Jewish children. I need to finish this process and go to the mikvah. I really formally want to be a Jew. This was not an easy act for someone frail, aging, and goses lamut in the process of dying, but he was fierce and determined to experience this Jewish ritual. And so we went. With great difficulty he immersed, and when he rose up out of the water, he recited, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. With a clear voice, he declared himself a Jew in the presence of rabbis and family and a few friends. The water carried him through his dream and prayer, and some weeks later he died a Jew. When we left the grave after the funeral, I kept turning around to take one last look, but my heart was lifted by the memory of the water. It carried his soul to life. Another story. A few years later, I heard on my phone messages the sound of a familiar voice. We had started cantorial school together in Jerusalem. He was ordained cantor by the Jewish Theological Seminary in 1993, the same year the Hebrew Union College ordained me. He found a magnificent job in Pennsylvania and a home overlooking the Susquehanna River. He called that day to say he had cancer and truly little time and asked if I would come to visit. And so I flew out east, and when I arrived, after hours of flying and driving, he did not want to see me. Suddenly, my visit meant to him that he was truly dying. I begged my way into the house and then into the room. Looking out over the river, we sang together Israeli songs we had sung in Jerusalem. The sound of the flowing water carried us and accompanied us through our time together. And when I left his room, I knew those sounds would be my last memories. He was not yet 50 years old, and I took his soul with me back to San Diego. Deeply personal story. My cousin Sarah survived the Holocaust in Auschwitz II, Birkenau camp. She was a nurse for the doctor of death, Yosef Mengele, and participated against her will in many terrible surgeries. They were experiences and memories that would forever torment her. And when I met her, I saw how those memories were clearly etched into her psyche. In 1945, after the camps were liberated, Sarah crossed the Levantine Sea and arrived in Israel. That is where she married my cousin and gave life. Her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren continue to thrive in Israel. Her desperately strong will and the sea carried her to a new life. I was not in Israel when she died, but I will make it a priority to find her grave, place a stone, and perhaps, as is a tradition of Persian Jews at a funeral, pour rose water over her grave. She is more than family, and I will carry her spirit with me. As I'm sharing with you, I'm struck by how often life-giving water is a part of these particular life stories. They have that in common. But more importantly, they are about how those last experiences are a part of the rich legacy that is left for us to carry from those we love. Think of Moses. Water is a part of his story, from birth, floating on the river Nile, until the last day of his life, looking over the river Jordan to the Promised Land. There is no burial site for Moses. No one will stand by his grave. And yet, our people carry his soul and his teachings with us from generation to generation. Final story. Just 2 weeks ago, we lost an extraordinary soul, not yet 38 years old, a Ben Bait, son of our community, a feisty bar mitzvah and teenager as I remember him, a loving husband as I saw him while performing his wedding in Hawaii, under a chuppah, under a tent, in the pouring rain. Life-giving water was everywhere. At the end of his young life, he was a man who refused to give up and fought every minute for the remarkable life he was given. He loved our tradition and made the last hours of his life full of joy and love for family and friends. And when I left his grave, I let the reminder of rain falling on the Hawaiian island and his fighting spirit, his smiling face turned to his bride, be the memories of his soul I will always carry. The people who attended that funeral were privileged to fulfill that last act of kindness, Halvayat Hamet, the accompaniment of the dead to their final resting place. Sometimes that last act of kindness cannot happen. Whatever the reason, the souls of those we love still become part of our souls. Today, now, we are all carrying with us the buoyant souls of family and friends who no longer walk with us on this earth. This is the part of the afterlife we do know about. Hold tight to the souls you treasure this Yizkor, and know you are sustaining a loving tradition, keeping their spirits alive in your hearts. Zichronam livracha, may they always walk together with you. Their memories, a blessing.